Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, we're going to be introducing our course, Math 150, and spending a little bit of time discussing the syllabus for our class. My name is Ben Mitchell, and over the next 5 weeks, you'll be hearing a lot of my voice through videos just like this one. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we get into the course policies and the details of our syllabus, let's spend a little bit of time just talking about what this class is all about. Math 150 is elementary statistics and probability. That means that in this class, we're going to be introducing lots of different aspects of statistics, going from descriptive statistics to inferential statistics, and also talking about how data is collected in the real world and some of the problems that can arise from that. Along the way, we'll also spend a little bit of time going into a branch of related mathematics, which is probability, and learning not only how to work with probability in its own right, but also seeing how probability helps us inform and make decisions in statistics. So overall, this class is pretty similar to a survey class in the sense that we touch on lots and lots of different aspects of statistics and probability. We're not going to go super far in depth in any one topic, but you will get to sort of be introduced to many, many different pieces of the sort of general field of statistics. After sort of introducing our Math 150 course, it's also probably a good idea to sort of talk about the structure of our class. Our class is considered an asynchronous class. What that means is that all of the sort of lecture material and content for our course is delivered to you guys in a manner where you can choose when to work on it. All of the materials you need for this class, the lecture videos, the course notes, will be available to you to watch when you want to work on when is convenient for you. The only strict deadlines that we have in this class are the deadlines for when quizzes are due and the days on which exams occur. Otherwise, it is up to you and your choice to choose a schedule that fits your sort of busyness and when you feel like it's best to work on the different aspects of our course. So overall, our class doesn't have any set lecture times. There's not online lectures that you have to attend at certain times. Everything is delivered to you in an asynchronous manner through lecture videos and course notes. The last thing I want to mention before we get into the sort of class policies and details of the syllabus is, of course, the fact that you are taking this course in the winter semester. The winter semester, as many of you probably know, is only 5 weeks long. That means we're taking a course that is normally taught over this time span of 16 weeks and condensing it into 5 weeks, meaning that we're going at almost, well, more than 3 times the normal speed. That means that each single day of this class is incredibly important. Every day you'll have to work a little bit on our class, because if we were meeting in person, say, we would be meeting in person for about 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And of course, there would still be the expectation of doing work outside of meeting in person. So that tells you that in this sort of very, very condensed time frame of the winter term, a course like this does require a lot of work. There will be multiple videos each day that I would recommend watching so that they don't pile up. There'll be several different exercises and practice to try each day, again, so that it's your choice when to work on those, but you don't want them to sort of pile up. And keep in mind that there'll be a quiz and an exam pretty much every week. So again, the pace of this class, because we're going from 16 weeks to 5 weeks, is very, very fast. With all that said, let's go ahead and start talking about the details of the syllabus and going through some of the key features that you should be aware of while taking this class. So, first of all, keep in mind that this class is Math 150, Section 0240, so do make sure that that's the one that you're enrolled in. As I mentioned, my name is Ben Mitchell. In terms of contact information, we'll sort of reiterate several of these things, but as you can see at the top of our syllabus here, there's a couple major forms of communication that are available to you guys during the term if you have questions. The first one is that we will have open office hours each week. These office hours will be through Zoom. You guys will receive an email with the link to the Zoom meeting and a reminder the morning of each meeting. These meetings will occur on Tuesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. and Fridays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. These are opportunities for you guys to hop on Zoom and ask your questions in pretty much as close to a live setting as we can. Generally during these office hours, I'll have the whiteboard feature of Zoom open so that we can work through problems. You guys are welcome to ask questions about whatever you're working on, be it material from the lecture videos, practice problems, even some of the quiz questions if you're having a hard time. These are opportunities to come on and ask questions about that. These are office hours, so these are for your benefit. These are optional. You don't have to attend these if you don't want to. And if you are unable to make these office hours, at the conclusion of each office hour, I always go ahead and post whatever sort of boards or notes were written up during that meeting so that even if you can't make the meeting, you can still see what was discussed. Again, I recommend that if you have questions, being that this is a mathematics course, it helps to be able to sort of ask those questions in a live setting and sort of see how they're worked through. So if you have the opportunity to attend these and you have questions, they're probably the best form of communication we have. But again, they are optional. They're for your benefit. The other main form of contact that we have here is, of course, via email. My email is bmitchell@elcamino.edu. If you have questions, again, this is the best way to sort of just get directly in contact with me. Let me know what the question is, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Generally, I try to check my El Camino email once in the morning and again once in the evening, so you should get a pretty quick turnaround. You're definitely guaranteed to get a turnaround or a response email within 24 hours. That's especially important, again, because of the winter semester and the winter term. With things being very condensed, I will definitely try to get back to you guys as quickly as possible so that you can get back and keep working on whatever you had questions about. All right, prerequisites for this course. Technically, the prerequisites for this course are a passing grade in one of our intermediate algebra classes or an approved equivalent, meaning if you took intermediate algebra at another school or in high school or something like that. To be honest, this class doesn't require a lot of prerequisite knowledge from other math courses. There's a very limited amount of algebra in this course, so if algebra was not your strongest suit, that's not a big concern here. There won't be too much of it to do. There's some simple equations to solve, but most of what we're going to be doing is basically, in terms of prior mathematics, along the lines of arithmetic type stuff. However, one thing that is very important in this course is comfortability with fractions, decimals, and percentages, and being able to convert between those and understanding especially what percentages sort of represent. If that's something that you don't feel super comfortable with, there is at the beginning of our course notes a little sort of review of that stuff, which I highly recommend looking over if it's been a little while since you've sort of messed around with decimals, percentages, and fractions. Other than that, most of what you need to know from this course is taught in this course. So unlike some math classes, this doesn't have a ton of prior knowledge that you need to bring into the class itself. There's a big description of our course here. Again, I'm not going to go through that right now. I think it's maybe useful to read through it so you can be aware of what you're going to be learning in this course. It can also be fun to go back to this description later on in our class and really convince yourself like, oh, I now know what all these things mean. But for right now, let's move down to sort of the required materials. The first thing that I really want to call your attention to is the required text for this course. There isn't one. You don't need to pick up a textbook for this class because you guys will be provided with course notes that I've written, which cover all the information that you need for this class. So you do not need to buy a textbook for this. These course notes are given to you guys for free. They're just posted directly on your Canvas website. If you do want a textbook for additional reference, if that's something that you feel like you want, you can take any edition of Moore's The Basic Practice of Statistics. That's a good textbook. It's probably, to me, the best textbook out there for statistics, but it is not necessary for our class. Everything you need for the class is provided to you via course notes for free. So you don't need to buy a textbook for this class. What is required for this class then? Well, this is probably the most important thing. You do need a calculator, and that calculator needs to be capable of statistical testing and procedures. What that means is that you should have a TI-84 Plus model or higher. So TI likes to label their calculators by number. So if you have a TI-84, a TI-84 Plus, a TI-84 Silver Edition, TI-87, TI-89, TI Titanium, any of the more recent TI models will be fine. If you don't have a TI calculator, that's okay. There's plenty of other calculators that can handle statistics. Casio makes some, etc. The only difference there, though, is that when I do examples in these lecture videos, I do my examples using a TI calculator, meaning that I tell you guys how the commands work on a TI. If you are using a different type of calculator, it's going to be your responsibility to figure out how to do it on your type of calculator. If you don't have a TI calculator, or you don't have any sort of calculator, and perhaps this is your last math class and you don't really feel like purchasing a calculator, El Camino does have a calculator loan program, which is available for the winter term. There'll be some information posted about that on your Canvas page. So if you don't have a calculator and you don't want to have to buy one, definitely take a look at that calculator loan program, and because it's a very convenient option. Overall, though, a calculator is absolutely essential for our class, and you need it almost right away. So it is absolutely a good idea to have this within the first couple days of our course because you're going to be using it right away. So overall, no textbook is required, but a calculator capable of statistical testing is absolutely essential. If you have any questions about whether or not your particular calculator is going to work, you're always free to email me or reach out during one of these office hours or however you want to contact me and let me know, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about whether or not that calculator is going to work or any of the sort of drawbacks that might present itself. All right, so here we have a big pile of course objectives. Just like the course description, can be sort of fun to go back to these and actually convince yourself, oh, I've learned these once our term has really started, but we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at these course objectives right now. Let's move on to page 2 here. Similar to the course objectives, there's a bunch of student learning outcomes. Can be sort of interesting to go back to those at the close of our class and really convince yourself that you learned what you were supposed to learn. But for now, let's take a look at something that affects probably you much more directly, which is how you are assessed or how the grades work in our class. So grades in our class are determined by a percentage breakdown, meaning that it doesn't matter the points for each assignment, it matters more the category that the assignment is in and the weight of that category. For you guys, there are 3 categories of assignments. It's very sort of simple and stripped down here because, again, we only have 5 weeks. So during our winter term, we will have 4 take-home quizzes. I use the name take-home, obviously, since we're doing this asynchronously and remotely, everything is take-home, but I still like to use the name take-home quizzes. So there will be 4 of these take-home quizzes. Each is worth 5% of your overall grade, which makes up 20% of your overall grade. There are also 3 midterm exams. Each of these are worth 15% for a total of 45%. And then there is a comprehensive or cumulative final exam at the end of the term, which is worth 35%. So quizzes, midterms, and a final, that determines your overall grade. Our grading scale is very simple. A's are 90 to 100, B's are 80 to 89, C's are 70 to 79, D's are 60 to 69, and F's are 59% and below. So standard grading scale there. In terms of extra credit, because that's usually a question that gets asked at this point, there are no extra credit assignments, but you will generally find 1 or 2 extra credit problems on every assignment. So there will be no extra credit assignments at the end of the term to make up grades or anything like that. We don't offer extra credit assignments, but you will generally find 1 or 2 extra credit problems on every assignment. All right, let's talk a little bit about each of these categories in a little bit more depth. So let's first talk about quizzes. There will be 4 quizzes during the term. At the end of the syllabus, you can find a schedule for when these quizzes are due. So there are 4 quizzes during the term. Each of you must work on your own quiz and submit your own work for this. So each person has to do their own quiz here. However, while you must submit your own quiz, you are allowed to discuss the quiz with your classmates. So quizzes are graded, yes, but they're pretty much treated like homework, meaning if you have questions, you can ask your classmates about that, you can share work between each other, and you can ask me about them. All right? Even though they are called quizzes, if you're stuck on a problem, you can certainly reach out to me. I probably won't tell you exactly how to do the question, but I'll certainly try to put you on the right direction for that. When you take a look at our Canvas site, you'll also see that for each quiz, we'll have a discussion board set up. So as you work on the problems, if you want to discuss amongst each other, you're free to do so. When you're done with your quizzes, quizzes will be submitted electronically via Canvas and must be submitted as a single PDF file. So when you're working on your quizzes, you really have two main ways of submitting your work. One way is if you want to sort of go most old school, you take a look at the quiz, maybe on your laptop or your tablet or your phone or whatever you're using to look at the documents for our class. Then you write up your work on a piece of paper. And when you're finished, you take a picture or you scan your work and then turn it into a single PDF file and submit that. That's probably the simplest and most straightforward way to submit assignments in our class. If you want a walkthrough of the different apps or software that are out there to convert documents, handwritten documents into PDF files, there is an electronic submission guideline page on Canvas that'll help you go through that process. The second option for submitting assignments is, of course, if you're making use of a digital note-taking software on like a tablet or something where you can directly write and it makes it into a PDF, you can feel free to submit it that way as well. Whatever is comfortable for you. The most important thing, though, is that your solutions come in as a single PDF file. Quizzes will always be due by 11:59 p.m., so the very end of the day, on the day that they are due. Keep in mind that submissions that are late or in an incorrect format will be penalized. And again, if you have any questions about how to do this electronic submission, you can find details about this on Canvas, and definitely feel free to reach out to me about it, right? Depending on how many sort of online remote sort of classes you've taken already, you may be more or less comfortable with this. Certainly, if you have any questions about the formatting or the submitting of files, definitely don't hesitate to let me know. That's not what I want to be grading you on, right? So you're always free to ask about, is this in the correct format? Is it legible? All those types of things. So that's the first category of assignments that you guys have. For quizzes, there'll be 4 of them during the term. Midterms. The dates for our midterms are already set, so you will be having midterms on Monday, January 11th, Tuesday, January 19th, and Wednesday, January 27th. You'll notice that that basically means that we have an exam pretty much every week. So Monday, January 11th, that's in week 2, this is in week 3, and this is week 4. So these exams come very frequently, again, because of the fact that we're going at basically a little over 3 times the standard speed. How do midterms work? Well, midterms are going to be made available to you at 9 a.m. on each of those days, and you have until 5 p.m. to complete it. Now, that's a pretty large window, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's 8 hours. Are these exams designed to take 8 hours? No. These exams are generally designed to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but because you all have different schedules, I'm giving you an 8-hour window to sort of work on them. Can you take the full 8 hours if you want to? For sure. You're welcome to take as little or as much of that time from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as you want to work on these exams. The main thing, though, is you must have it submitted by 5 p.m. When you're working on your midterms, you're allowed access to your notes. So that's just like the quizzes. When pretty much anything you work on in this class, you're allowed access to your notes and to our course materials, meaning the course notes, the lecture videos, whatever you want to use. The big difference between the midterms and the quizzes, however, is that for midterms, you are not allowed to discuss or work on the midterms with any other students in the class. So with quizzes, you can feel free to discuss your work, your solutions with each other, but for midterms, you have to work on it by yourself and not discuss it with anybody else in our class. Just like quizzes, midterms will be submitted electronically via Canvas and must be submitted as a single PDF file. So in terms of submissions, quizzes and midterms are pretty much identical. No makeup exams will be given, so make sure that you're available to take these midterms on these days. If you know for a fact that one of these days you will not be able to take the midterm, you need to let me know right away so that we can sort of arrange for that, because once these dates come up, no makeup exams will be given. If a particular midterm does not go very well, or if you do somehow via an emergency or something like that miss one of these midterms, one exam score can be replaced by the final exam score if the final exam score is higher. So what that basically means is that if one of these midterms does not go particularly well, or if you miss one of these midterms, your final exam can count in place of that missing or not so great midterm. So keep that in mind towards the end of our term. Again, as always, submissions that are late or in incorrect format will be penalized. So if you have any questions about submissions, make sure you ask those ahead of time so you're not getting stuck with submission issues right near one of these midterms. Finally, which is appropriate, I guess, the final exam. This is the last sort of category of assignment. Our final exam is a comprehensive exam, meaning that it is cumulative. It will cover things from the very start of our course to the very end of our class. In some ways, the final exam is generally quite a challenge for normal terms because you have to remember things over the span of 16 weeks. One advantage of taking this class in the condensed winter term is that you only have to remember things over the span of 5 weeks. So in some ways, the comprehensive or cumulativeness is a little bit easier in this condensed time frame. The final exam is held on the last day of class, which for us is Thursday, February 4th. The final exam is made available at 9 a.m., just like the midterms, but is due by 9 p.m. So the final exam is a bit longer than some of the midterms, so you have a wider window there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., so you have 12 hours to complete it. How long is the final exam expected to take? Well, the midterms are expected to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's what you would have if you were doing them in person. The final exam, you'd have about 3 hours to complete in person. But again, you get a much wider window so that you can accommodate yourself with your schedule. Just like the midterms and the quizzes, you're allowed to access your notes for your final exam. That means the notes you've taken, the course notes we have, the lecture videos, any course materials you have. Obviously, you are not allowed to discuss or work on the final exam with any other students in your class. Final exam submitted electronically, just like the quizzes and midterms, and again, must be submitted as a single PDF file. Again, submissions that are late or in incorrect format can be penalized. Why, at this point, you might be asking, is it so important that you get these single PDF files? Well, this is important because when I grade your guys' assignments via Canvas, I want to be able to leave comments to you, and by having them in a single PDF file, it makes it possible through this sort of Canvas app to actually give you comments about your assignments. So very important to have it in this format so that I can not only give you the grade that you get on each assignment, but also give you that feedback. All right, so again, in terms of assessing you guys in this class, we've got 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, and 1 comprehensive final. Grades will all be tracked in Canvas, and Canvas does make use of grade weighting, so meaning that it can take into account how these percentages sort of work. So generally the grade that you're seeing on Canvas is going to be pretty accurate to the actual grade that you're earning in this class. All right, let's move on to page 3 of our syllabus. So on page 3 here, we have some general requirements and important dates. Now, before I go through these general requirements and important dates, I want to make a general, which is, I guess, appropriate considering it's general requirements, a general comment about this class. Overall, because this class is asynchronous and also because we're in this condensed time frame, you're going to receive a lot of sort of reminders and announcements from me. Generally, you should be expecting via Canvas that each day, Monday through Friday, you're going to receive a little announcement sort of reminding you about what's been going on, what things are coming up due, what you should be working on, and sort of reiterating any of the sort of important aspects of how our class works. What that can sort of mean is probably, as you already can tell, as we've discussed the syllabus, I generally tend to repeat some of the major points several times. This isn't just because I've forgotten that I've already mentioned them. It's really intended to make sure that it comes across and that you realize it. Even if you miss it once in one announcement, it'll probably show up in the next announcement. So yes, sometimes with some of these things, you'll hear the same thing repeated, but again, that's just to make sure it doesn't get missed. So let's go ahead and talk about the general requirements, important dates, and the structure of our class. As we mentioned at the beginning of this video, our class is an asynchronous class, meaning that there are no scheduled lecture times. Instead, all lecture materials will be presented through videos on YouTube. For you guys, you'll find the videos for our class on a playlist named Math 150 Winter 2021. So you'll have the link to this YouTube site. It'll be on Canvas. It'll also be in your sort of introductory email that you've probably already seen by this point. So you'll have that link to that playlist. It's probably not a bad idea to favorite that because you'll see that's where you'll need to go to always find the videos. I put the videos in order that they should be watched. Obviously, when you watch these videos, feel free to watch them as many times as you like. Stop them, start them, however you sort of like. I'll update the class regularly about what videos have been posted. I'll generally put a pretty big chunk of videos so that you have the flexibility of choosing when to watch them. But again, I'll let you guys know what's up there and also what I would recommend as a schedule. Again, since this is an asynchronous class, I recommend that schedule, but it's not necessary that you follow that schedule exactly. Remember, the only set dates in this class are the dates that quizzes are due and the dates that exams take place. So as long as you're completing everything by then, you'll be all good. When you're watching those lecture videos, you'll quickly find that I give you guys a lot of options with those. Those lecture videos also come in the description on YouTube with the blank PDF for the video. So if you like to follow along and fill out a sheet as you watch the video, there is a blank PDF for each video that has everything that's going to be discussed in there, and you can follow along with it. There also for each video is a fully annotated set of notes. So if you've completed watching a video and you want to go back and just find what was discussed in that video without having to rewatch it, well, you can pull up that annotated PDF and see everything that was written out during that video. I really recommend trying to be as active as possible when watching the videos. It's very easy for you to just put on a video and then sort of tune out, even if you're trying to just listen. I really recommend making sure that when you watch these videos, you treat it just like you would if you were in class, meaning you have a piece of paper, maybe you have the blank PDF, and you really follow along and work at the examples and things in those lecture videos. Along with the lecture videos, there are also materials such as suggested exercises and course notes. In your guys' daily announcements, you'll have which problems you should be trying from those, which sections from the course notes you should be reading. In general, some people prefer to watch the lecture videos, read the course notes, and try the practice problems. I think that's a totally fine way of doing it. Some people like to read the course notes, then watch the lecture videos, then try the practice problems. Again, totally fine way of doing it. You'll have to sort of play around and see if you prefer reading the course notes, then watching the videos, or if you prefer watching the videos, then reading the course notes. That's more for you as how you personally prefer to sort of learn. But keep in mind, you have lots of materials for this class. So you have lots of ways of seeing different examples and lots of ways of trying examples yourself. As mentioned, for additional practice, you have a set of course notes, which, as we mentioned, replaces our standard textbook. This will be posted to Canvas, and you'll be reminded which sections of this course notes you should be reading through each day. And this probably has already come clear, but on this point here, keep in mind all the documents necessary for this class. So that means the course notes, the practice problems, the quiz documents, the midterm documents. Every document you need for this class can be found on our Canvas site in the Files section of Canvas. So it's a good idea at the beginning of our course to sort of acquaint yourself with this so you know where everything is sort of showing up. Canvas also will be used to submit our assignments, keep track of your grades, and provide a source of these announcements for class. Keep in mind also, Canvas has the discussion boards that are also available if you want to sort of ask questions or discuss the different quiz or practice problems with your classmates. Also, as mentioned before, all assignments are submitted electronically. If you have any questions about that, there is a guideline document on Canvas that explains how to do those electronic submissions, or you can reach out directly to me about how to submit things for our class. Make sure that if you have any questions about submitting things for our class, you ask about them as soon as possible so that it's not getting to where you're close to the first deadline for, say, the first quiz or the first midterm and scrambling to figure out how to submit it. So it's good to practice that and make sure you're comfortable with it as soon as possible. Also, to reiterate, we're going to quickly go over the major ways that you can contact me or ask questions or get help during our term. So since our class is completely online and asynchronous, these are the three main ways. First, as mentioned, there are online office hours via Zoom. Those times were at the top of our syllabus, and remember, on the day of one of those Zoom office hours, you'll receive a reminder email in the morning with the link to that meeting. These office hours are optional, but they're a great way, again, to have a live discussion of the topics in our class. Sometimes we'll also have some additional little Zoom meetings right before exams to help you sort of review or prepare for the exams. So, again, I'll let you guys know about those as they come up. If you're unable to make one of those, but you did want to see what was discussed, remember those notes and boards will also be posted to Canvas. So if anything is discussed, if we work through a problem during one of those office hours, all that sort of work will be posted to Canvas at the conclusion of the meeting. Second, we will have Canvas discussion boards set up for each set of suggested exercises, quizzes, etc. So as you're working on the practice problems or you're working on the quiz, if you have a question and you sort of want to share that question to the general class and see what other people have sort of figured out, the Canvas discussion board is a great way to do that. I personally really recommend using this because not only does this give you guys a chance to discuss amongst each other, it also means that if I hop on and I help answer your question, everybody else in the class gets to see that and gets to benefit from the sort of back and forth in that discussion. Obviously, this third and final way is also good. Sometimes you want to just email me directly. The only downside of this, of course, through emailing me directly, is that if you ask me a content question through direct email and I respond to you, you're going to be the only person that benefits from that response because only you are going to be able to see it. So generally, what I ask you guys, and again, it's your option, but what I would recommend is content questions really should go through Canvas so that everybody in the class can benefit from the discussion. Whereas if you have a question about submitting your work or your current grade or any concerns about the class, those are things that are better to just directly email me so we can have a sort of more private discussion on that. Some important dates for our class. This upcoming Thursday, January 7th, so the first Thursday of our term, is the last day to drop the course without any sort of notation on your permanent record and receive a full refund. Keep in mind, like I mentioned, because this is a class that's going about 3 times as fast as a normal term, there's a lot to do. If in those first couple days you find that it is just too much, it's just too condensed, this is the date to sort of drop the class, make sure you don't get any sort of notation, get a full refund, and think about taking the class during the normal term where it's spread out over 16 weeks. The other drop deadline, which of course is the drop deadline where you receive a W but avoid perhaps a failing grade, is Wednesday, January 27th. For you guys, that is a good date because that is also the date of your last midterm. So if you're concerned about how you're doing in your class, you will get a tremendous amount of information before you need to decide if you have to drop with a W. Right? You will have been able to have taken 3 of our quizzes and all 3 of our midterms by the time you reach this date here. Also keep in mind that because this is an asynchronous class, if you do wish to drop this course, make sure you go ahead and officially withdraw from the class. It's very hard in an online setting for me to assume that you've stopped attending or that you're not going to be participating in the future. So if you do decide to drop, you need to make sure you go ahead and do that yourself. Finally, right here, make sure that because this is an asynchronous class, there are tons of announcements that all come out electronically. Again, I try to double send all these. I'll make an announcement via Canvas, and I'll also send the announcement out via email. But make sure you check your El Camino email on a regular basis, and make sure you check that Canvas page on a regular basis so you're aware of everything that's sort of going on. All right. As we sort of finish up here, let's quickly talk about some of the cornerstones to success, right? How to sort of approach this class in a way that is going to be beneficial to you. Well, first of all, keeping up with the material. As I mentioned, there's going to be a lot to do each day. Because it's asynchronous, you don't necessarily have to do it that day, but I strongly recommend you work on this class every day. Otherwise, things are going to really pile up, and it's going to be very hard sort of at the end when it gets close to a quiz or an exam to try to catch up on everything. So try to follow the schedules that I send out each day. Try to make sure you watch those associated videos, read the course notes, try the associated exercises, and whenever you're working on something for this class, try to be as active as possible in the process, meaning when you're watching the videos, follow along, work the problems yourself. When you're reading the course notes, try the the practice problems in the course notes yourself. And when you're looking at the associated suggested exercises, make sure you're actually working through those. And if you get stuck on anything, reach out right away to me, either via email, via the office hours, or via the Canvas discussion boards. Taking good notes, that's also very essential for this class, because remember, you will have access to those notes for every assignment. That means for the quizzes, the midterm, and the final. If you're organized with those notes, it's going to make all the assignments much easier. What I mean by that is that sometimes in a class setup like this, where you have access to all the materials, you might think to yourself, well, when I get to the exam, I'll just go find the right videos and use that. Well, even with like an 8-hour or 12-hour window, it can be very challenging if you haven't organized your notes, or at least sort of organized our class materials, to find all the things that you actually want to find in that time span. So I recommend taking good notes yourself, but also annotating all the things we have. If you watch a video and you see an example that you think was really useful or really enlightening, well, make a note of that so that you know that when you get to a quiz or an exam, you can go back and you know this example from this video is a good one to look at. So the more you can organize in a class like this, the easier everything will be. Obviously, studying adequately before the exams. Again, you don't have that time pressure, well, at least not a real harsh time pressure like you would if we were taking this in person, but it is very important to make sure that you still study, annotate your notes, organize your notes before the exams. You guys get review guides, which we'll talk about a little further into our class for each exam. The review guides sort of give you even more practice problems for each exam. So make sure to work through those thoroughly and ask any questions you have. And then finally, the last cornerstone to success, which is probably an obvious one, but it's making use of the resources. You have a tremendous amount of course resources here in terms of lecture videos, course notes, practice problems, but you also have a bunch of resources in terms of interaction. The live office hours, the Canvas discussion boards, our course notes, the other students in the class, right? So all of those, if you make use of them, will make sort of the class easier. Let's go on to the last page of our syllabus and quickly discuss some of the last policies here. So, academic honesty. With something like this, really the academic honesty comes into play on midterms and exams. For quizzes, like I mentioned, you can discuss the quizzes amongst each other. You still need to submit your own work, but you're certainly welcome to discuss it with each other, and you can even ask me about questions on the quizzes. So there's not a lot of opportunities for sort of academic dishonesty or anything on the quizzes. But for midterms and exams, and for the final exam, we do need to be a little careful here. We have to make sure there's no discussion amongst each other during these midterms and the final, and certainly no discussion with anybody outside of our class. If there is any evidence of this, that means sort of problems that are worked in an extremely different way than what we've done in our class, or using things that are far beyond the scope of our class, then there can be disciplinary action taken that usually results in a failing grade on that exam or the assignment, but it can also have other ramifications decided by sort of our division office. Lastly here, there's a sort of ADA statement, which is about educational accommodations. If you have an accommodation via the Special Resource Center on campus, please let me know as soon as possible so that I can take that into consideration and make sure that you get the accommodation that you have. But overall, this statement also applies to everyone, because keep in mind that despite the sort of strange circumstances of remote learning and everything like that, this class really is here for your benefit as students. Statistics is one of the most applicable sciences out there. And data and decisions based on data happen all around us all the time. So there's a tremendous amount that you all can gain from a course like this. So that also means that I want to make sure that you all get out as much as you possibly can. So as this course goes on, obviously you're welcome always to reach out to me about questions about the content or about how the course works, but you're also welcome to reach out to me about if there's things that you sort of need in this class to benefit more or to be more successful, right? So always feel free to let me know how you're doing in the class, things that you might want to see change. I can't necessarily guarantee that they can all happen, but definitely do that, because the more you take ownership of our course, the more you will get out of our class. Lastly, I'd like to just call your attention to the quiz and exam schedule. This will be set for our class. It's a very sort of simple structure. We have these take-home quizzes. There's 4 of them, take-home quiz 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll notice that they're due on these different dates here and due by 11:59 p.m. You'll notice that it's not a coincidence that each quiz is due 2 days before a midterm. Why is that? Well, it's so that I can post the solutions to the quiz the next day, and you can look over the solutions to the quiz before you take your midterm. So you'll get to sort of have this quiz as another form of practice for each midterm. So you'll turn in the quiz, then the next day in the morning, you'll see the solutions to quiz, look those over, ask any questions you might have, and then you can use that as preparation for each of your midterms. Again, these midterm dates and the final are pretty much set in stone. So if you are aware that one of these dates or the time frame or something doesn't work for you, let me know as soon as possible. If it gets to the day before the exam or the day of the exam, there are no makeup exams, and you'll have to use the final exam to sort of replace it. So if you feel like there's a conflict, you need to let me know as soon as possible. So this is our syllabus. This is the start of our class. After this video, what I would recommend is taking a little bit of time to orient yourself with our Canvas page, see what's already on there, and then you can start on the videos in our Math 150 Winter 2021 playlist, which starts with some motivating examples, which hopefully will show you why statistics is not only such an interesting field, but such an applicable field in our modern world. So again, guys, welcome to our class. I can't wait to go through these next 5 weeks with all of you.